Hey, my name is Gytis. I'm a UX designer based in Lithuania and I've been using Figma for the last 6 years on a daily basis. If you ever wanted to learn Figma, this is the time to do it. So in this first video of the two-part video session, I'll teach you how to take a screenshot of any website or application, put it into Figma, and then using Figma, build it from scratch. So going through this, you will learn how to build anything from scratch from the design point of view. And I'll also share some tips and tricks how to do it faster and learn more about design as you're doing it. So without further ado, let's jump straight to Figma. Okay, let's get started. So first, you obviously will need a Figma software. You can either just log in inside the figma.com and just create an account using your Google account or any other way that you like, but it's generally very easy. You just sign up and you're free to use, obviously to some extent. So you can read the website, see what Figma says about them, but generally you probably already know why you want to learn it. So let's jump straight into Figma. Okay, so this is a new project that I've started. It's very easy to do that. Once you sign up and open Figma, you'll see a couple options. You can either try using some of the Figma's created sort of demo projects, but you can just create something new and then start learning that way. So my approach is very simple. I think that the best way to learn Figma is to actually try to copy other designs and do that in Figma. That will allow you to learn the tools and it will kind of develop or help you develop a process of working through something like that. So I'm not going to go through what all of these different things mean at the moment. We're just going to copy some designs and we're going to start creating using Figma, and then you'll just see what I'm using and what's sort of the most used tools that you'll need. So first, you obviously need some sort of designs, and I'll do a shameless plug. This is my website, and here are some, this is just one project that I've chose. We've got, a few on our website, so feel free to go and check it out. It's gytismark.com. I'll leave the comment down below. And essentially, if you want to take any design and put that into Figma, it's very easy. It's pretty much the same thing as you would copy and save image from the web onto your desktop, but you can, without saving onto your desktop, you can just copy it and then paste it straight into Figma. So you can obviously grab a screenshot, using print screen button on your keyboard. If you have like a snipping tool that I quite like to use, you can use that as well. But in this case, usually if you find a website, that you like, you probably will take a screenshot. But if it's just an image of a interface or application that you like, then you can just click, right click on it and use command copy image, which will do just now, and then I will go back to Figma, and all I'm gonna do is paste it here, and voila, we have imported an image. I will show you a couple more ways. So obviously, if you have on the Windows snipping tool, you can turn that on, which I'm using the Shift, Windows key, and S to trigger that, and you can just grab a particular thing on the screen, and this will just apply for pretty much anything that you want to do. And same thing, you go into Figma, you can paste it in just like that. As you can see, this image came out to be much smaller, meaning that it's going to be of smaller quality, of lower quality. So it depends what you're looking for. And the third way that I'm usually copying stuff is I have this very handy plugin that I will leave a comment about as well, which just allows me to pretty much capture the whole thing. So it's either taking a screenshot of a visible part, the full page, or of a selected area. So it's a really great tool if I'm taking the full screenshot of the web page, and it allows you to keep me fairly good quality at the same time. So it depends what you're looking for, but for this example, you can just use copy and paste. Okay, so let's jump back to the Figma. We'll delete that other image. So we have 3 screenshots of an application. Right, so first thing that I want to do is usually tidy this up because it has some, borders that I don't really care about. So I just want to crop this thing around. So when you kind of move your mouse to the edge, you see that the mouse changes to this sort of, horizontal arrows here pointing both ways. So if you click it and then drag it, then it will help you to adjust any particular image to your desired dimensions. If you want to do that only to one edge, you pretty much do the same. You click when you see this arrow change and you hold Control or Command, and then it will allow you to crop only one side. And we can do the same thing for the bottom. Well, I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't have to be perfect at this time. Now we have 3 images. So we probably would not need all of them, but so I just pick whichever I like the most, and using what we've just learned, using Control or Command and drag, I get my one screen that I will try to copy over. Great. So we've got a reference image now. All we need to do is start building out from scratch. So first thing that you probably will want to do is to create a frame. And the best way that I found to explain what frame is, it's essentially a window, if you want to think about it that way. So when you're opening any sort of website or you're just opening your laptop, you have your screen, which is, has some sort of dimensions, and all the visible content is only fitted in that particular window. So when we're creating something in Figma, whether that's a mobile application or a website, we start with that window. We want to define what are the dimensions that we're creating for, and then we can start putting things inside it and creating the interface. So in this case, we're creating a mobile application. So when you click the frame, which you can find at the top here, or clicking F on your keyboard, you'll see on the right side a lot of these different options appearing. So if I shrink that particular one, you see that you've got phone, tablet, desktop, presentation, watch, paper, all the kind of stuff. So you can create pretty much for any particular frame, screen, or even sort of paper formats, things like that. So in this case, we're only concerned about phone, and it gives us different options from Android to iPhone. And let's say in this case that we want to create something for the iPhone 14. So as you see, this kind of almost matches it. I guess I've created this maybe for like an older device. So it's a good idea because we're gonna try to copy things over pretty much by eye. I want to make sure that this is more or less of the same dimensions. So you can do that in 2 ways. Simple thing that I usually do is I just select this particular image and I take a corner and I want to drag it so it matches the height. So when I'm dragging it, it can sort of drag in both ways and distort in unpleasant ways. So for me to keep it nice and tight, I want to hold Shift as I'm doing it. So I'm holding Shift now and I'm dragging it. And even though I move my mouse, it's only gonna kind of increase the size, but not gonna distort the image. So I match it and it kind of snaps when it reaches this edge. So this is more or less what I want. Another way to do that would be to click on the frame. So if you only click on this blue text over here, you will see different things appearing on the right. So as you will learn by using Figma, that on the right side, you usually have a lot of details. So when you select a particular thing, the right side shows you slightly different type of information depending on what you're selecting. So in this case, when I'm selecting a frame, I'll see that this particular frame has these particular dimensions and placement on the screen. And it has the width of 390 pixels or points and height of 844. And if I wanted to match it exactly, I would select the image and then I will try to match it, the width and the height of it. So if I wanted to match it exactly, I could just copy 844, move it here, and see that this is 844 and this is 390. So I will copy that because that's a different one, and I go back to image, and I can just paste it in like that, right? So you can see that it also affected the height of it. So I will go back with Control Z or Command Z on the keyboard, and I want to detach this particular element because that shows constraint proportions. So if I want to affect one side but not affect the other, so I want to affect the width but not the height, I want to click it so it's no longer, these two are no longer sort of dependent on each other. So now if I paste a new width and I click it, then that put it in place. And it did not affect the height. But as you can see, it just squished the image, but we still have these, unpleasant artifacts over here. So for the image, I would just click it, use the control, and I would kind of take it to the very edge, and then we can see that's already 392. And I want to do this the same here and kind of match it. So we've got the same width and height, and we have not affected the actual proportions of the image. Okay, so that maybe was a little bit too much of a fiddling, but now we are ready to go. So we've got our frame of iPhone 14, and now we want to start and copying the design over. So I usually just start at the top, but you can go from the bottom if you like it that way. So first thing that we can see on the screen is that we have resources. So this is a text element. So to create text is very easy. There's a T letter over here. You can also click T on your keyboard, and roughly just somewhere in that part, click it, and it starts, you have this cursor appearing, and you can start typing your words, resources. Okay, so it moved in this funny way, so I just click and drag to move it. It doesn't matter now what the size of it is. I just want to put the rough sort of framework of it, and then I'll do a second pass and sort of add all the details and make sure that it all matches as evenly as I can make it. So we've added that. Then we have another, we have icon, and we have another text element over here. So in order to copy an element, it's usually quite easy. You can just use your normal commands of Control-C, Control-V, or Command-C, Command-V to do that. But it usually places the elements right on top of it. So if you click and drag now, you see that there actually was a duplicate here. But a quicker way to copy something over is to select that element and hold Alt on your keyboard, which as you can see also enters into this sort of dimensions mode, which allows you to see how different elements are, how far from each other are. So in this case, it's only one element that we have on the frame. So it shows, what's the pixels that we've got at the top, left, bottom, and to the right. So that's irrelevant at the moment. So if I hold Alt and I drag this element, click and drag, then it automatically duplicates it. But as you can see, I can move it all different places. So most likely we'll have that button exactly to the right of it. So if I wanted to snap it, I will hold also Shift, right? So when I'm holding Shift, and even though I move my mouse, it still keeps it in that axis. It will keep it on the sort of horizontal and vertical axis. So I move it here, and I just double click it to edit, and we'll enter search. There we go. Again, it does not have to match at the moment. We're just putting the structure in place. Next, we have this very light and almost imperceivable line here. To add a line, we will go to the top where we see this rectangle tool, and if we click on the small arrow, it will give us a different options for the different shapes. So in this case, we need a line. You can also see a shortcut letter L. If I click that, I want to draw a straight line now somewhere, in that particular sort of height. So I click it and I start dragging it. And as always, if I just drag it without clicking anything on the keyboard, it will allow me to drag it in any particular direction. So in this case, I will want to snap it horizontally. So again, I will click Shift. So it's the magic Shift key that kind of puts everything in place and, you know, creates this order, and you can just, you know, scale things up or move things in a horizontal or vertical axis very easily. So we've got the line in place. Now we've got more text over here. So again, as we learned, I click it and I hold Alt and Shift to move it exactly down. And if I wanted to resize it, you know, because it's going to take a lot of space now, I go to the right where we have all of our different settings. We've got the position, constraints, and I'm looking for this text specific settings. And in here, we've got the font or typeface, we've got the weight of the typeface, and then we've got this actual size in points. So I just use, you know, up and down on the keyboard if I want to make like small gradual changes, or I can click and drag, you know, click the drop down to select anything from here as well. So let's say we just, you know, put something smaller. And when I'm dragging it, you see a bunch of lines appearing and numbers appearing. It just allows you to quickly gauge the distance from elements, and it also allows us to snap so that elements are aligned to each other. So it's just a smart way that Figma helps us to create things, you know, in order quicker. Right, so we've got that text in here. I can, you know, put the actual text because we're trying to make it, you know, look as close to original as we want. Learn, boom, okay. Make sure you're spelling it correctly. I've been in this place many times before when it's made some silly spelling mistake, and then we only and nobody notices until the product is released, and some users actually realize that there's some spelling mistake. So make sure you spell it right. Okay, next. Now we're kind of more going into more interesting part where we have these grid, very even and, you know, very, I guess, comfortable to the eye, grid layout. And for this, we will just need squares or rectangles. So I click the now line tool, but essentially these are all shape tools. So I click rectangle, or you can click R on your keyboard, and I will just kind of eyeball it now and click and drag. Again, if I'm dragging it without Shift key, it just drags, you know, any different shape that I want. If I hold Shift, it will keep it constrained and very nice and even. So I'll just stop here. And now inside of it, we'll need some text as well. So we already know how to copy text. We click, hold Alt, move the text, right? And just sort of leave it there. So now you can see that we've got the text, which is behind the rectangle over here. So you can either move the rectangle back or move the text in front. So there's no really preference at this point. So I click on rectangle, click the right mouse button, and then I will look for command to move or bring to, or send to back. Okay, use a different words. Send to back. You can also use a keyboard shortcut. Click that, and then voila, the rectangle is now at the back, so you can see the text. And in this case, we've got watch. Okay, and we'll change the text align settings so when I'm typing, it actually moves in the way that I want it to, rather than kind of awkwardly as it did previously. So let's put it here, and we've got some even smaller text below that. So I can click Alt key, Shift key, and it moves right down. And it's now videos and movies. Okay, missed that. And there we go. And it's much smaller, so we'll just go there. And if I click down and I hold Shift, it moves 10 points. So in this case, maybe a little bit too much, maybe something like that. Maybe it will be fine. So when we'll change the font, the weights will also look slightly differently. So at this point, it does not really make sense to worry about that too much. So roughly something like that. Cool. So we have pretty much that. Now I want to make these round corners that we have over here. So it's very easy. If you click the rectangle and you have your mouse over it, you will see that it has these sort of points or little circles appearing, and it even shows the radius equals 0 now. So if I want to change it and I want to add rounded corners, I just click and drag it, right, like that. And as you can see, all of the different corners did the same thing. So now we have radius of 16. And again, I'm not really trying to be super accurate, but that's roughly, looks something like that. Maybe drag a little bit more, something like that. Okay, cool. Right, so now all that we are missing is the image in this case, but we're probably gonna do that later once we're doing the second pass. I just want to put the structure in place, and that's good enough for now. So what I want to do now is create 4 pretty much identical squares at the moment. So to do that, I usually would select everything and I would want to group it all together so that when I'm moving it, it moves all together rather than being 3 separate things. So if I click the right button and I'll see the group selection option, and I click that, and now it's one group. And as you can see on the left side, we have a new group over here, which is called group 1. We have other things sort of being more kind of individual and on their own. But in this case, we have group, which has 3 things in here. So that's what we did. Now we want to copy and create 4 of these squares. So we've already learned how to do that very quickly. We select the item, we click and hold Alt and Shift on the keyboard, and we just move that item. And it actually kind of snapped to this text over here. And cool, we can see from the example here that we probably maybe want to make that, a little bit smaller. So I select and I can just move it with my mouse, or with the keyword left and right arrows, either way. And when I select both, I want to make sure that they're at the center. So when I'm moving it, I see a bunch of different lines appearing. And when I see that there's this vertical line, red vertical line going through the whole thing, it shows me that I'm at the center. So now I can release it. And now I want to create a second row. So while I have both selected, again, I'm using Alt and Shift, and then I just move down. And as you can see, it shows you also the numbers of 16. So we're kind of keeping things consistent. We have a lot of 16s around. So it means that, the spacing that we use is quite even, and that's what we want. It's not the same as here, but again, I'm not really concerned, at this point. So I just want to continue creating structure. So again, we need another text element. I click and drag using Shift and Alt, and then we've got some smaller rectangles here. So for that, I probably will just copy this over. So Alt and Shift and move down. There we go. And obviously it's not a rectangle here. So I want to kind of shrink this down. So if I would do that just by clicking the edge, as you can see, it will stretch the text quite unpleasantly. So Ctrl Z to go back. But if I click it and then if I hold Command, still not do. So if I want to move it exactly just the rectangle, so I can either ungroup it, clicking the right and then do ungroup, select rectangle and then resize it. Right, that's one way of doing it, and I'll show you a different way. So I'm trying to match it somewhat. The height is probably not quite there, but good enough. And the other way, if I would just take another of those rectangles, I can, without ungrouping it, I can double click into this group, and that will select rectangle. As you can see over here, it only selected rectangle. And now I would be able to shrink it down as well, release, and the text would not be affected by that. So again, double click and slightly move, it snaps to match the height of the other thing, and voila. And so this stays as a group, but while this was ungrouped. So I will group it again using Ctrl and G, keyboard shortcut. And now we want to create another 2 rows of this one. So I select both, Alt-Shift, move it down, and then do the same thing again. Move down. Okay. Again, spacing is not quite there. Doesn't matter at the moment, but it starts to look something like what we need. And the last thing we're missing is this nav bar at the bottom. So for that, I will select the rectangle tool, but in this case, it's not going to be an even rectangle. So I'm just gonna, kind of eyeball it and drag it across the whole thing. And again, it snaps to the right and to the bottom. All right, let it go. And now I will probably want to change the color of it. So when you select something, it will show you the fill color over here. And if I select that, I can just, because this is just pretty much pure white, I will just move that color selector to the far left or the top left, and that will make it white. Now I want to add some small copy over here, which I could just select something like that. If I want to select inside of a group, I can obviously double click it and just find the thing that I'm looking for, or I can hold Command or Control, and this will allow me to select straight into the group. So that's sort of a quick hack to do it. So I hold Control or Command and click to that, select that particular text, and I want to copy this one, then move out of that group, select the thing that I'm interested in, and then copy and paste that thing. Actually gems somewhere in there, but I'm just gonna move it over here, and then we're gonna have more of that. And then we've got these lovely icons, which it depends at which stage I am. Sometimes I just use nice squares or rectangles to represent placement of those, so that I remember later when I'm actually adding it, so we can do that at the top here. I haven't done it for that search thing, but we can still do it. Okay, so there we go. It may took a little longer than I wanted it, but I think by now you should be able to really understand how to put a structure in place, how to copy and paste things, how to create frame, how to put the text, how to resize it, how to pick a color. And in this sort of second part of this video, we'll go through or make second pass, and we just try to match it by eye as close as possible to the reference example. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching the first part of this series. If you have not subscribed yet, do that now so you don't miss the second video for the Figma tutorial.